So the first lecture I would gonna to talk about consumer and producer. A lot of things about demand and supply curves, or some marginal revenue, marginal cost, etc. So let's begin. Lesson one is consumer theory, and a key point of this is that just just introduce some economic concepts. We have two economics. The first one is positive analysis, is the study of the way things are, and the normative analysis is a study of the way that things should be. And I think it is very you will see it in your exams or something very common, but it's quite easy, so you don't need to worry about so much. Okay, the key to know is microeconomics studies how individual and firms make optimal choices under scarcity, focusing on trade-offs and opportunity cost. Yeah, the thing is opportunity cost. It is why economic is different from accounting because we think about economic cost, and those economic costs sometimes not related to money, maybe related to your feeling or something, but you need to consider it. Models are simplified tools to understand behavior. Positive economics explains what is, while normative economics debate what should be. Yeah, normative economics is common in those policy. You need to take how people feeling into account, not just very stick to efficiency and forget equity. That will make some problem if you are a policy maker. Okay. Lesson two, lecture two is preferences and utility function. It is for consumers. It is for consumers. And consumer choices are based on preferences and budget constraints. Yeah, performances is just about your utility uh to you, how happy you are, and to know about this. Indifferent curve, we use indifferent curve as a basic graphical tool of consumer theory. And there is four important properties of indifferent curves. The first is consumers prefer higher indifferent curves. Um, yeah. The second is indifferent curves are download slowly, down concave. Yeah, they are concave. Indifferent curves never crosses a set of bundle. You can't just happy in a different way. Okay, so that is very reasonable. Intuition. There is one different curve through each possible consumption bundle. Yeah. Utility. Utility is very important concept in consumer theory because we need to know how the things you feeling if you buy the thing, how happy you are, how so that kind of things is utility. Utility is the way mapping performances. We use utility to get our ordinal ranking, not cardinal ranking. Yeah, utility function translates consumer utility from different consumption bundles into units that can then be compared. And the marginal utility is another very essential concept in economics. Economics think about marginal. The marginal utility is the derivative of utility, which respect to goods. It measures how utility changes as consumers consume more of a good. The important principle of diminishing marginal utility states that consumers receive less utility from each unit of good they consume. Um, yeah, it's very easy to understand. If you are very hungry, then you eat the first cake. That cake give you a very happy feelingness because you are hungry and um you just eat a cake very happily. But when the cake comes to third or fourth cake, you maybe is too full to eat them. So your that kind of happiness just not as greater as the first cake. That's called diminishing marginal utility. And the slope of indifferent curve is called the marginal rate of substitution, MRS. Basically, is the rate at which consumers are willing to trade y-axis for x-axis. MRS is the ratio of marginal utility. That means think about next unit. How much x-axis items you are willing to transfer with y-axis items. MRS is diminishing as you move along the indifferent curve. A key concept to know is proof that indifferent curves and crosses using a figure. Proof that indifferent curves are downward sloping using a figure. Draw indifferent curves corresponding to perfect complements and perfect substitutes. Know how to sketch an indifferent curve given a verbal description of a consumer preferences. Calculate marginal utility given a utility function. Cal- Calculate marginal ratio of substitution given a utility function. Okay. Lesson 3 is budget constraint. Um, the indifferent curve is given you have infinity money, how happy you are for each bundle. But in the real world, we all have budget constraint. We are not Elon Musk. Okay. So the consumers have limited resources, their budget constraints. One simplified assumption is that budget is equal to income. Budget offered to good X and Y is defined to be the price of X times X plus the price of Y times Y. The slope of budget constraint is defined as marginal rate of transformation, rates at which you can transform one good into another good in the market. Um, so the MRT is the price px over py. It's def, it's de, it's be defined or it's be proved by the market. That means every consumer, aggregate consumer, willing to translate x and to y and translate y to x at a certain ratio. It's MRT. But like we say, everyone has um a different MRS. So how to optimize that? We just find the point that the slope of indifferent curves is equals to the slope of budget constraint line, which is MRT equals to MRS. That's why how we do constraint optimization. The above equation, so at this point, slope of the indifferent curves equals to slope of budget constraint. This is equivalent to equating the marginal cost and benefit of consuming each good. To know how to write down a budget constraint given price and income. Show graphically how to find the bundle that maximizes the consumer's utility subject to the budget constraint. Solve the optimal bundle mathematically for the consumer given a utility function, prices of two goods, and income. Be sure to check off your corner solutions. Yeah, those extreme cases. Okay, the other side is demand. We have consumed, now we have demand. Demand curve is for consumers. Lesson 4 is demand curve, and demand curve shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Often we connect consumer choices theory to demand curves by varying prices while holding income constraint. Now the other side, next topic is about electricity. Electricity of demand is defined to be the 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 delta Q over delta P. For example, if quantity demanded falls by 2% for each 1% increase in price, then epsilon equals to minus 2. That means if you raise the prices, if you raise your prices 1% higher than before, then your demand will fall 2% than before. So it must be negative. Okay, so epsilon is negative 2. Perfectly in elastic demand. If the demand does not change regardless of what happened to the price. So that means the demand curve is vertical. Whether the prices always have the consumer willing to pay for for the item. So the epsilon is 0. When there is no pleasurable substitute, demand is likely to be perfectly inelastic, like insulin. Diabetes can't change another things to substitute insulin. So the insulin market is very nearly perfectly in elastic demand if there aren't some government intervention. Okay, so the, the on the harder side we have perfect elastic demand. Its demand will drop to zero if price moves at all. Epsilon equals to minus infinity. When there are perfect substitutes, demand is likely to be perfectly elastic. The elasticity affects consumers' response to a shift in price. That means how sensitive the consumers feel about the price change. If the elasticity is between 0 and minus 1, then firms can raise revenues by raising the price, since consumers will still buy the goods in significant quantities. If the epsilon is less than minus 1, then raising the price results in a decline in firms' revenue. Accurately estimating an elasticity requires a shift along the supply curve. Um, example is a tax on suppliers would shift the supply curve up, causing the equilibrium price to raise and quantity to fall, from where we can calculate the price elasticity of demand. Now the next topic is shifts in demand curve. To trace out the demand curve, we change prices holding income constant. To shift the demand curve, we change income holding prices constant. The angle curve is shows the direct relationship between income and consumption. That means your income now, for example, now it's 24. Then what if your income raised to 32? How much of the items you would buy if your income changes? So the income elasticity of demand shows what happened to consumption as income changes. Most goods are normal goods. They have a positive income elasticity. Consumption of normal goods increases as income rises. And those are and we also have inferior goods. Inferior goods have a negative income elasticity. That means consumption of inferior goods falls as income rises. And normal goods we can derive two category. The first one is necessities. Are goods with the angle curve slope minus between 0 and 1. That means you spend a smaller share of your income on necessities as income rises. On the other hand, luxuries are goods with the angle curve slope is greater than 1. That means you spend a larger share of your income on necessities as your income rises. Now we have another very important topic. It is income and substitution effects. Um, they change how we consumption the goods, what to divide, what quantity we should buy. An increase in price has two effects: income effect and substitution effect. The substitution effect is the change in quantity of goods demanded when goods price changes, holding utility constant. When one good gets relatively expensive, the substitution effect is the extent to which you shift away from that good. The income effect is the change in quantity of goods demanded because of a change in income, holding prices constant. Rising price effectively lowers the consumer's income, and this has a distinct effect on demand. Income effect reinforces substitution for normal goods, as both have a negative effect on the quantity demanded as income rises. You need to remember that substitution effect is on the upside of the income changes. Okay, if the prices goes high of one item, then you need the substitution effect means you stop by this, you will reduce your um you will reduce the quantity you buy. But income effect works against it for inferior goods. But if the goods are inferior goods, as the as your income falls, you buy more. Therefore, substitution effect is always negative, but income effect can be positive. According to the overall effect of the price increase and consumption of a goods can be negative or positive, it is an inferior goods, and the income effect is larger than the substitution effect. Now it's a demand what we should know. First is explain the difference between a movement along the demand curve and a shift of demand curve. Explain what the elasticity of demand supply imply about changes in in equilibrium. Explain what quantities observed after price changes imply about the income and substitution effects. That's all about the consumer. We talk about consumer. We talk about how positive and normative analysis of economics. Then we talk about the utility function in different curve, MRS and MRT, how we do constraint optimization, and is to find the point that MRS equals to MRT. And now we also define the demand curve and the elasticity of the item. And the angle curve is to how the item, how your income changes related to effect your consumption of what of goods. We have normal goods, we have inferior goods, necessities, and luxuries. Now and the income effect and substitution effect is that how how the prices changes how you make your choices under the price changes. So we all have this, and this is all about the demand side. That's lecture one. Thank you for listening. See you the next lecture. Bye bye.